On a normal Victoria Day weekend, many of us would be celebrating summer's unofficial arrival in some familiar ways. Normally, it's a time to open up a cottage or visit a campground or go shopping south of the border. Normally, it's a time to enjoy family gatherings and barbecues with friends and neighbors. And normally, it's around this time when you at Martin Grove would be organizing your annual spring barbecue and preparing for that special event. Those were the days, weren't they, my friends? The days we thought would never end. The days that now seem like a long time ago. For it goes without saying that life is not normal on this Victoria Day weekend. Though vaccines are being given and infection rates are thankfully dropping, many activities are still not possible. Or, like Sunday worship and our other church activities, must take place in very different ways. To be sure, these circumstances are allowing me to participate in this special service this way, even though I now live 2 provinces away. And I'm grateful for the technology we use, and especially for this invitation to be part of this special day. But such anomalies are all too rare. And I'm sure we all wish that life would return to some version of normal right now. For regardless of where we live, we've heard far too many announcements of rising case counts and new outbreaks. There's been too many stories of people dying alone, of overflowing ICU units and exhausted medical staff, and of patients being transferred to hospitals far from home. There have been far too many funerals that have had to be postponed, too many families unable to share special moments, too many stressed out teachers and parents and students trying to adapt to online learning, and far too many essential workers getting sick because of unsafe workplaces and being unable to take time off. What's more, no one knows for sure what the months to come will look like. Lots of uncertainty still abounds. So don't you wish life could go back to normal, to the way things used to be? Well, if your answer, like mine, is yes, then the story of the first Pentecost may seem out of place or even somewhat jarring. Indeed, it's hard to imagine any passage being less in tune with our current needs and desires than this one. For we read that the Holy Spirit descended upon a group of people in an intrusive and disruptive way, causing old routines to be overthrown and new patterns to begin. Luke, the author of Acts, tells us that Jesus' early followers were gathered together when a sound like the rush of a violent wind came and filled their houses. Divided tongues as of fire appeared, and all of them were filled with the Holy Spirit and began to speak in other languages as the Spirit gave them ability. Those present were amazed and perplexed, wondered aloud what on earth was going on. And the neighbors thought they were a bunch of drunken fools who'd been into the sauce since before dawn. Something new was definitely afoot, something strange and different. And we may wonder if we can handle that sort of thing right now. Haven't we all had more than enough strange and different events in recent months to last us a long, long time? Well, be that as it may, history shows us that the Holy Spirit doesn't always come in ways we may expect or even consciously desire. Indeed, the Pentecost Spirit descended on the first disciples at a time when they were still reeling from everything that had happened to them since Jesus' death. No, they weren't dealing with a pandemic, but they'd just witnessed Jesus' ascension, had just selected someone to replace Judas, and were now trying to figure out what to do. They too were in a confusing and challenging time. Still, the Spirit's sudden appearance in wind and fire signaled that more change and uncertainty was likely in the offing. And that's precisely what came about. The Spirit unleashed a new power that reminds us that God is ultimately in the business of leading us forward, not backward, and that God doesn't always wait for us to feel ready. And the good news is that the Pentecost Spirit that filled the disciples with so much new energy and purpose and hope is also present to transform us, empower our lives and our churches, and guide us into the future. So the Spirit may have something more in store than simply helping us get back to normal, to return to the way things used to be. And the story also invites us to question what Barbara Brown Taylor describes as the tendency of churches like ours to think that our God is pretty old and tired by now, and is someone to whom we may address our prayer requests, but isn't anyone we really expect to change our lives. For the God of that first Pentecost is anything but old and tired. Indeed, that Spirit is much more like the one described by writer Annie Dillard. When we come to church, she says we should all be wearing crash helmets rather than straw hats. Ushers should issue life preservers and signal flares. They should lash us to our pews. For the waking God may draw us out to where we can never return. That's precisely what happened on that first Pentecost. And the promise of this day is that the Spirit still seeks entry into our hearts and our church and our world, to bless us to go boldly forward and experience abundant new life. So perhaps this story is more appropriate for today than it might have seemed. For we're celebrating the beginning of a new pastoral relationship and are looking forward to a new chapter of creative Spirit-led ministry at Martin Grove emerging. And I'm delighted that the Spirit has led you at Martin Grove to call my dear friend and colleague Rick Tamas to lead you, and that the Spirit has led you, Rick, to respond. Rick, from our time sharing ministry together at Humber Valley, I've seen your real love for creative worship, your passion for making good music, your caring and compassionate heart, and your deep desire for human wholeness and congregational well-being. You're a person of deep faith and many gifts, and I have no doubt you will bring countless blessings to this congregation. And I also pray that you at Martin Grove will give Rick the opportunity to lead you, love you, and help you grow spiritually and as a community. The covenant you're making today is a mutual commitment, and you are promising to support and work with your minister as he guides you in discerning where the Spirit is leading you and then figuring out what that means. To that end, it's important for you to share your hopes and dreams, your fears and concerns, your gifts and your passions, so that a new chapter of faithful ministry here can unfold. No one, including Rick, can do it alone. Like it or not, the world is not what it once was. Challenges abound. Mantras like "we've never done it that way before" simply don't cut it like they may once have. And fresh expressions of Christian life, some of which we probably can't imagine now, will be required if faith communities like yours and mine are to survive and thrive. But the good news of this Pentecost Day is that the Spirit can and does bring about new and abundant life. So as we celebrate this new ministry on this Victoria Day weekend, I pray that you, Rick, and you, the people of Martin Grove, will find that God does blow through closed doors and really does set hearts on fire. even in these uncertain times. I hope you'll live and worship with the knowledge that the Spirit is alive and guiding you into the future. And I pray that as you work together, all of you will find new ways to bear faithful witness to God's everlasting grace and love. May blessings be upon you all.